It's a sure thing. Change, change. Expect a miracle change. Watch me change when you change the way you look at things. The things you look at change. When you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. When you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. When you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. Now do 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 change. Do 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 change. Do 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 change. Do 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 do.
Good afternoon and welcome to Spirit Cafe, or good evening or good morning, depending where you are in the world. I'm Barbara Jean.
And I'm Cheryl Rogers.
And I'm Marg Dupuis.
And we are thrilled that you're here with us today. And I'm going to start with our land acknowledgement. We are honored to be meeting on this land that many First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people from across Turtle Island call home. We acknowledge and thank the original caretakers and knowledge keepers of this territory. Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat. And we also give thanks to all other Indigenous peoples, recorded and unrecorded, who have shared responsibility for this territory. We are allies and we take an active part in reconciliation. And these words are the first step. And today we choose to take action, for we know that we are one and we choose to drop walls of separation and participate in the oneness. Miigwech.
Miigwech. Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you, Barbara. And we have a wonderful guest today that is a personal friend, actually, of our co-host, Marg Dupuis. So I'm going to invite you, Marg, to introduce Laura and tell us all about her.
I am so excited that Laura is joining us today. She will bring so much to the show. I will just leave it at that. I'm going to say a little bit about Laura. She's a full-time professor at Conestoga College. She has been teaching at a university level since 1996. Laura has an undergraduate degree in archaeology, a master's in anthropology, a master's in history, and a PhD in history with a major in archaeology. Before she was
too smart for us.
Wow.
Saying, yeah. Before she became a professor and after her diagnosis of MS, 17 years later, she got her degrees. During the time she was on disability, she got her degrees. So, wow, determination.
Yeah.
Credit to my dear friend. Laura, if you'd like to come and join us, and I will ask you a question and then we'll go from there. Hi, Laura.
What are we talking about today?
What are we talking about? Well, perhaps we'll talk about why disability sucks or doesn't suck.
Okay.
And
yeah,
are you going to take disability out of the closet, Laura?
Well, it sounds like I am. So you want me to just go? Is that what you want me to do? Tell you about things? All right. Thank you so much for having me. First of all, I'm really honored that you asked me and that I'm here. I have a lot to tell you about my story, but today in particular, I'm really excited about, so I teach at Conestoga College, and I've had so many opportunities at Conestoga, things that have been just incredible journeys for me. And one of the most recent is something that I'm really, really proud of. And that is, we now have what's known as a disability minor in our department. I'm in liberal studies. We are the only college to have a disability minor in the province, and only one of 6 universities in the country that have a disability minor. So and it is at the degree level, so I'm comparing it to universities. And I am just honored and delighted to be doing this disability studies. I am teaching, just started last week, my first class in this minor, and I've called the course "Why Normal Sucks." I'm being careful to say the word "sucks" because apparently I think sound like I'm saying the word "sex" when I say it sucks. S-U-C-K. Why it's a bad thing. Normal is a terrible thing, and so why normal sucks. And it has been an incredible journey with this course. The students are blowing me away. They are excited. They're attending. I mean, so yes, thank you. Um, Interestingly enough, when you do an elective, often students don't show up. And so I'm having faculty say to me, oh, I have 40 students in my class and 8 showed up. And, another one will say, oh, I have 37 and I had 6 show up. And I'm like, I have 45 and 39 showed up the first day and 43 yesterday. I'm really sorry that yours aren't. I don't mean to, I'm just so excited that
Wow.
they're keen and they're excited. So yeah.
So it must be something really interesting and intriguing that brings them back. So let's talk a little bit about, the past couple of years we've been talking about changing language and not using the word disability. Using things like able-bodied or differently abled or things like that. What is that about?
I'm glad you asked. So, having had MS for at least 30 years that we know of, I have had people say to me for years, oh, you are disabled, you are, and they're telling me who I am. And I've always said, I'm not disabled, I'm differently able, just as you said. I really just thought, no, I'm not disabled. But as I began to think about this minor and this whole idea about everyone saying all the time, normal, you're not normal, and other people to assigning what is normal, I began to think about this idea of disabled, and I didn't want to call it a disability minor. I wanted to call it something else. But upon a lot of reflection, I realized actually there is power in taking it back. Instead of someone saying you are, which is having power over me, I'm saying I am disabled. Okay, I'm going to take that back. And so for me, this is, I've cut your line here about courageous conversations. It is a courageous conversation. So, you know what? It's okay. I am calling myself disabled. If you call me disabled, not so good. If I call myself disabled, I can embrace that and feel comfortable with it. And it's been so interesting with my students trying to even define, what do we mean by a disability? Exactly what do we mean by that? For example, is someone that's a sex addict disabled? Or an addict of any kind for that matter. And I told my students last week that when I was in public school, I was identified as gifted. And then I was told that's a disability because it wasn't normal, right? It's not normal. So it's somehow a disability. And so as a kid, I'm like, oh my God, I'm smart. This isn't a good thing, or whatever it was that they were trying to tell me. And so, I've always hated the you are thing because you're disabled because you're X. But my students, as we've been talking about not only what is disability, but also that there's no such thing as normal. So, and just sort of saying there isn't any such thing as normal. And that's been really, already my students are engaged. They're excited. Last night, they were saying to me in my class, because it's the night class, no one's ever said that to me before. I identify as being unusual, and now it's okay. I feel safe. I had students, they made me cry. They were saying to me that no one's ever said this to me before, never said this to them before, that it's okay to be normal or not normal, that there's no such thing as normal. That, I haven't said to them, if you get a result from a doctor, a blood test that says, oh, you're not normal, really? I constantly get people tell me your white blood cell count is too high, so you have to have antibiotics because you're sick. And I'm always like, nope, that's my normal. And it's not someone else's normal, but it's my normal. And anyway, I'm really trying to help students understand that normal sucks and it's also not a thing. And it's also okay to say I am something, whatever the something is. And if it's disabled, that's great. So I don't know if that answers your question, but that's what I think about it. Yeah.
I have a question, Laura.
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead, Barbara.
No, I was just going to say, I was teaching my daughter that years and years ago. the fact, she was about 10 years old. I'm going, normal doesn't exist. It's no such thing. But I said to her, I said, really what normal is striving for mediocrity.
Exactly.
Mm.
Well,
That's all it accomplishes.
Very well said.
I said to my students last night, why does anybody think it's a good thing to try to be like everyone else? How is this a good thing? Isn't originality better? And what is that about always wanting to be the same as everyone else?
Mhm.
Ew, who wants that anyway?
Mhm.
Mhm.
Exactly. Go ahead, Mark.
So, because of the political time that we're in and needing to watch vocabulary and terms and whatever, when you were presenting this to the college, was it difficult for you to say that you want to say, normal
Mhm.
sucks and use the word disabled in a positive way? Was
I
it
got a little,
difficult?
I got a little pushback. I did. I had a question from a higher up who said to me, "Well, who will take this course? Who would want this course? I don't think we should do this. I don't think it should be disability studies. I don't." And I just kept saying, "No, we need this course. We need to do this. Why normal sucks." And I actually had an advocate in the curriculum office who said, "No, we're calling it Why Normal Sucks. If that's what we're calling it, and it's my decision." And I'm like, "Okay, cool." I didn't think I was going to get it through, to be honest, but I
Mhm.
think it's important that students understand that I'm really saying we need to reinvent, figure out another word, find another way to look at things. No such thing as normal, and let's embrace that we're different. That's a good
Yeah,
thing. So,
I love
but
that.
but in answer to your question, Mark, yeah, I got some pushback, and at the same time, I was just kept saying the same thing that I know of what I speak. And as a matter of fact, I mean, this came from my own experience. I was in my scooter. I have a scooter. Well, I used to have a scooter. I used to have a wheelchair. I have neither now. You wouldn't even know I had MS if I'm walking down the street, unless you're a neurologist, maybe. But anyway, I was in my wheelchair, and this person walked up to me at a shopping mall and said, "What do you people like to be called? Crippled, disabled, what?" And I looked at this person, it was a woman, and I said, "I'd like to be called Laura.
Mhm.
Mm.
I do not speak for every disability, everyone who has a disability. I speak for myself. I like to be called Laura." And I tried really hard to believe in my heart that what the person was really asking, which is exactly what Mark was just saying, what is politically correct here? I tried to believe that's what they're asking. Although the way the tone, the way they asked, I wasn't so sure that's what they meant. But the truth is, I don't speak for everyone. I only speak for myself and my experience. And so I'm just trying to help other people, my students, faculty, other people in my college understand that I don't speak for everyone, but I think we need to be aware that disability is maybe something we can embrace, but normal we need to remove. So I don't know if that's an answer, Mark, but it was an interesting journey to get here. It really was. I have a really, really supportive boss, and that was really great. And I have really supportive people in curriculum, which is really great. And so, you know, you don't know me, Mark does. I just decide and I push and I ask the right people and I go and I go and I go and I go. And if I'm lucky, I get a yes. So ultimately,
Wonderful. Yeah, that's wonderful. And I love that what you're saying is that everybody's normal is different. So how can we even call something normal when we think we're all relating to the same thing and yet we're all different? We know that we are all part of something bigger, that we are part of one, yet we are uniquely different. And it doesn't mean being one needs to be that we are the same.
correct. I couldn't agree.
So one of the things that also came to my mind when you spoke about that woman asking you is how the minute we are perceived as different, we become othered, if you know what that means, right? Because now it's these other people, and it's like a separation, right? Where she was saying, "What are you people?" So now she's saying, "You're different. I can't relate. Like, who are you? What are you?" And it sounds like she even spoke to you like you weren't even a person.
That's the tone I remember. I hope that wasn't true, but that's the tone I
Yeah,
remember. Certainly the one I
yeah,
heard.
yeah. Do you feel that generally in the community how people treat you?
Yeah. If I have a visible disability, so sometimes with multiple sclerosis, you do. My attacks, by the way, have never been shorter than 8 weeks. The longest has been about 6 months. Sometimes they overlap. So sometimes I'm always in an attack, and there's been all kinds of things that have happened. I've lost my vision, and you can't tell, but I can. But if I'm in a wheelchair, or worse, if I've lost my speech,
Mm.
that's been hard because my intelligibility is very low when, depending on, I've had 2 speech issues, 2 different reasons. And the one, especially, intelligibility is very low. And so what's funny actually is that my esophagus doesn't close. So the air comes out of my nose. So I sound deaf even to me, but people talk louder. And I always think, oh my God, if I was deaf, it wouldn't matter that you're talking louder. But
Mhm.
in general, I think in the community, people have been awful. Um, I had times at the shopping mall where I've had people walk up to me and say, literally, "What are you people doing here? You shouldn't be out in public." And things like that. Like, strangers,
Yeah,
obviously,
yeah,
we're random people,
yeah.
and and yet I have a flip side of that. So in spite of the numerous times that have happened, like if I even in my worst when I was unintelligible, people who, if they really concentrated, you could get words from me that you
Mhm.
understood. But people I would say something and they'd nod and they'd turn to somebody I was with and say, "What did she say?" They didn't ask me. They talked as if
Mhm.
I wasn't there. And, those kinds of things are just really, really, really common. One time
Mhm.
I was in a wheelchair and somebody grabbed my wheelchair and started pushing me where they wanted me to go. And I'm like, yeah, excuse me. That
Mhm.
asked me where this is what I wanted to do. And they just assume that you
Yeah.
don't know what you want. But the flip side, I do have a incredible story. I had been in the hospital for a month, unable to speak. My brain stem was swollen, and so the doctors didn't think I was going to make it. And I was in the hospital, had all these drugs, and it doesn't matter. I made it. As a matter of fact, I remember my doctor came into my bed, my office, and said to me, we can't get the swelling down. I don't know if you're going to make it. And I grabbed a piece of paper and I wrote on and I gave it to him. And it said, I'm going to prove you wrong. And I
Mhm.
was determined that I was going to be the case. But after I got out, because I obviously did prove him wrong, I, I got invited to go to a powwow, and I went to an Indigenous powwow, and this music, the dance, I wanted to dance so badly, but I was in my wheelchair and I was really, really sad. But these Indigenous people of various kinds kept walking up to me and they just put their hand on my shoulder, not really say anything, and walk away.
Mhm.
Finally, this one woman put her hand on my shoulder and leaned down and got down to my level. So we were face to face. And I said to her, can I ask you a question? Like, why does everybody keep doing that?
Mm.
And she said, this might make me cry. She said, in our culture, we are honoring you because we believe you have more wisdom being in this chair, and we are honoring you.
Mm.
Wow.
And I
Yes.
was, compared to what I had been used to in the wider culture, this was the first time I felt honored and
Yeah.
felt recognized and seen. Like I was
Yeah.
seen over and over again. I was seen. Instead
Yeah.
of people used to literally trip over my wheelchair, literally trip over it. I'm like, hello, I'm just sitting here.
Mhm.
It was anyway. So the obviously the difference
Mhm.
is phenomenal,
Mhm.
and so
Mm.
I can't say that it's always been that way, but that was that one time that just made everything else feel much better. So
Wow,
Yeah.
that's beautiful. That's
Very
beautiful.
powerful.
it
I
was very.
remember a year ago when I was having to use a walker and I was at a convention and people were annoyed, visibly annoyed because I was slow or I was taking up too much space or whatever. And I thought, this is a group of spiritual people. I
Mhm.
sort of expected a different
Mm.
response. So I get that people can be kind of cruel,
Mm. It's
Indeed.
so
And
insensitive.
very insensitive. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
you just
It's,
have to hope they didn't mean it that way.
Mm.
I just do. I mean, I'm not saying
yeah.
I don't agree with you, Barbara, because I do. I just I try to give them the benefit of the doubt that maybe they didn't mean it quite as awfully as they said it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's good of you. I don't know, honestly, if I could, because I know what the first thing is that comes to my mind that I want to say.
Well, do you know what was the worst one actually? Was one time I had my cane in my hand and somebody kicked my cane out of the way deliberately. And I was just, well, I grabbed walls, went, but I didn't go down. I got things, but I was like, what? Like, what? Did you think I was not going to fall? I mean, anyway,
Yeah.
anyway, I mean, I have so many stories, but
Yeah.
I do my best to try to see it that people don't mean as much as they sound like they do. I really want to say that one of the things, like, people often ask me, well, so why are you cheerful? Why? And I've actually, had people say to me, are you really this cheerful, like, all the time? Like, is this really you? Are you faking it? And because I've nearly died a couple of times from MS and I'm still here, every single morning, thank you, Mark, the very first thing I think when I wake up is, I'm still here. Yahoo,
Wow.
I'm still here. And every day counts for me. And so one of the things that, I mean, compared to other things I've been through, this is a great day. I mean, so what if things annoy me? You know, it's if people are rude, oh, well, you know, it's no big deal. And so for your purposes, I know, considering what this is called, I thought I wanted to share today some of why I've gotten through as well as I have. And I won't talk about my earlier journey for the minute, other than to say, I'll talk about it another time, but other than to say that I realized that my ears were hearing me grousing. Oh, this is bad. This is awful. I don't feel well. I'm in pain. I'm tired. So I started a mantra for myself, and anyone can borrow it if they want. This is my mantra. I feel healthy. I feel happy. I feel terrific. Sometimes it was, I feel healthy. Boy, do I feel terrific. But I determined that my ears heard what my mouth was saying. And, you know, what's interesting is I really do think eventually I became that I feel healthy, happy, and terrific. And I think that was part of my healing journey is the mantra that I use for myself. And that even it was through gritted teeth. I still say it. I still say it all the time. So again, I feel healthy, I feel happy, I feel terrific.
The power of positive messaging.
Right? Exactly. And so much better than the negative. The other thing that's happened for me in recent months is a friend of mine has been saying to me, gosh, Laura, you get mindfulness. You get it. You like, have you been practicing for years? I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. And he said, no, it's called mindfulness. And you know, you do it. And so, you know, I was like, really? Okay. And I started looking it up, and I actually decided I would go to a mindfulness class last fall just to find out what it was. And it took me one class to go, I have been doing this for 40 years without knowing. I thought I was the only one who did this. I totally did. I thought I was weird. Okay, Mark, no comments. I maybe I am a bit weird with my last name, Quirk. You know, I think I am. But I thought I was the only one who was doing this. And so it turns out I've also been, I'll use the word meditating, although I wouldn't really have used it before. I would just say that I found stillness, places of stillness in myself. And I've been doing that since I was a kid. And I did that starting in nature, actually. I remember just going and just sitting and hugging a tree and just feeling it, or sitting by water and listening to the waves, or sitting outside and listening to the birds, or listening to the wind. And I realized that I could just get to that place of stillness. So anyway, it's interesting to me that I've been doing mindfulness for a long time. And that's been, I think, a really key reason to why I'm healthy, happy, and terrific, and
Absolutely.
also doing really well today. So yeah.
Beautiful. That's really lovely.
Wow.
So Laura,
Yes.
if we go back to before you were diagnosed,
Yeah.
and if you thought of the word disabled or the term the diagnosis MS,
Mhm.
did you have a judgment on disabled, or has it changed now? Do you feel, can you see the positive to having, quote unquote, a disability?
Oh, you asked a million questions of lots of things in that one question, my friend.
Of
So
course.
my my mother had MS, and so my mother had it probably from the time I was about 6 months old. So I didn't know a healthy mother, and when I was 8, I remember she couldn't walk, and they told me she broke her leg, and I'm like, yeah, she didn't break her leg. She doesn't have a cast. I've seen people with it, but she didn't break her leg. And I thought, why are my parents lying to me? So I pushed and pushed and pushed, and heard the word multiple sclerosis when I was 8 for the first time, and I just thought, ugh. My mother's weird. She's embarrassing to me. She falls all over. She just was awkward and awful. And so I had a real bias against the idea of disability. But I was always told, oh, thank God, MS is not genetic. You won't catch it. So it was a shock to me. I lost my vision, a perfect pie of the eye, it turns out, um, when I owned my art gallery, which was my first career. I was working in my art gallery, and I lost some vision, and it was just weird. And so my eye doctor said, don't worry, it'll just go away and you'll be fine. If it ever comes back, come to me. Okay. Did go away. Took a bunch of weeks, but it went away. But about 6 months later, the entire eye, I lost the vision, and left eye still. And so I went to the eye doctor, said, I'm going to send you to an ophthalmologist. So I went, and that doctor looked at me and said, is there MS in your family? I just about fell out of the chair. And I was like, yeah, what do you mean? What do you mean? What do you mean? Never occurred to me for a minute that that's what this was. Even though in hindsight it should have, because I was always told my mother's first problem was she lost her vision in her left eye. And then the second thing that happened was she lost her left leg, which is the same order for me as well, as it turned out. So yeah, I was, oh, hell no, I am not disabled. Oh, hell no, I'm not going down that road. And so yeah, I had incredible biases against it. Against it is the word I will use, the idea of disabled. So I suppose that's probably why for a long time I was saying I am not disabled. I am not. I'm differently abled. I'm something else, but I'm not disabled. But you're right, Mark. As you get older, things mature. I don't know. You learn. You think. You realize that actually, yeah, I'm totally comfortable with it now. Although I didn't want to call, as I said, my course, my minor, disability minor, because I didn't want some kind of weird bias that I originally had. But anyway, I'm embracing it now. So I don't know if that's the answer that is a helpful answer, but yeah, definitely I had my own bias, and it was important for me to come to terms with that bias.
And that's the case, I think, for most people. Thank you for that. We're going to take a short commercial break because we're at about the halfway point here. You're watching Spirit Cafe show here on the New Thought Media Network, and we will be back in just a couple of minutes. Don't go away.
The views and opinions of our guest and hosts do not necessarily reflect those of New Thought Media Network, or any organization we may be affiliated with. Here at New Thought Media Network, we welcome freedom of speech and courageous conversations. There are many topics that can be difficult to navigate. Challenging the status quo and engaging in lively debate is important to expanding our understanding of one another, and life in general. Creating a peaceful world doesn't happen because no one disagrees, it happens from a willingness to understanding one another. In our programming, we strive to expand consciousness and assist people in creating remarkable lives. Your comments are welcome at info@ntmedia.org.
And welcome back to the show. All righty. So we're talking about normal, which we know doesn't exist. We're talking about disabilities. We're talking about life on planet Earth.
I have a question from something you said before the break, Laura. And it was in the early part of the show. And you mentioned that you got to the point where you're okay saying, I am disabled. However, you're not comfortable with anybody else calling you that. And I thought that was very interesting. And I just wondered if that was something that you're wanting to change, or you're just feeling that that's okay. You're not going to be comfortable with others calling you that, but it's okay for you to call that yourself.
Oh, that's such a great question, because for me, what I'm saying is I'm taking the power back. I am not going to let you tell me who I am. And I think it comes from, like I said, that time when I was a kid, when I was told, well, you're gifted, therefore you're disabled. It was really young. And I was like, what? And then, I had things like when I was early in my diagnosis with MS, and I was fighting hard to be as healthy as I could. And I had a neurologist say to me, you're not as well as you think you are. I have tests to prove it. And I looked at that doctor and I said, you're wrong. I am exactly as well as I think I am. No better, no worse. And he goes, no, I have the test to prove it. And I was like, why are you telling me this? What do you think you're doing here? And I think I just got tired of the doctor gods telling me who I am, and who else, parents, but anybody saying you are. I'm like, you know what? You are is the racialization, I call it, of anybody. When you say you are to anybody or anything, I think, no, I am. I'm happy to say I am. But if someone's saying you are, then they're trying to take back the power. They're trying to tell me who I am. So I'm never going to be comfortable with anyone telling me who I am. I am. If someone wants to say to me, like if my good friend Mark said, Laura, you are a bit of a pain in the butt today, which, sometimes I probably am. And you sweetly wouldn't say that, I know. But the truth is I am. And if someone says that, it's like, okay, I am. You're right. But I am saying I am. So again, it goes back to taking my own power back and say, thank you for that. I am this. I acknowledge that. But,
Right.
That's for me the big issue, is just someone trying to have power over. And I don't even get that.
Yeah.
Why do you care what I'm doing? Just let me do my thing. I often think that's what. So I don't know.
That's a beautiful answer. Thank you. It makes sense. At first, I was like, "That's interesting. I'm not sure what that's about," but it makes sense from where you're thinking about it from and coming from.
I can kind of relate, I think, not in a disability way, that's another topic, but as a person who's in a female relationship, if somebody wants to say you are a lesbian, I want to say no. I don't want to have the label. It's not, I have nothing to be ashamed of. I'm married to a woman, but I don't want the label lesbian. Other people do embrace that. I just don't like anybody saying you are and with a label.
Telling you who you are.
Telling me who I am.
Nobody knows who you are.
Yeah.
They're telling you their perception of reality from who they are. They're projecting.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's a flat out lie when somebody says you are.
Yeah. And what I love about what you've shared, Laura, as well, is it's new thought principles. You may not be aware of that, but really what you're saying, affirming who you are, and using that positive input that you use is really new thought principles. What we say, what we think, what we do, that's who we are. That creates our reality. Right. And so you've been doing it just like you've been doing mindful thinking, not being aware of that.
Yeah, that's wonderful to know. I'm doing something that's a good thing. That's other people are doing. I'm I just really don't like it when other people are constructing your reality. And what's worse about a disability, honestly, is what are they looking at? They're looking at what I can do or what they perceive I can't do. As a matter of
Mhm.
fact, when I early on with MS, I had 3 different people tell me they couldn't be my friends because I couldn't play tennis with them anymore and I couldn't ride my bike with them anymore. And I thought, wow, well, thanks for your honesty, but also, what are you valuing about me? You're valuing what I can do or what you perceive I can do, not who I am. And
Yeah.
so for me, that's what I struggle with the most when someone's saying you are, because what they're seeing is just this shell that maybe isn't doing what you think it should be able to do, but it certainly isn't who I am. And it's a part of what impacts me, but it's not who I am. So you're only looking at this one thing. So that's what I am objecting to the most about the you are. That's honest.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Beautiful.
absolutely.
Mhm.
As you know, Laura, I had sort of a similar experience, a person who was very dear to me and uh, very close. And when my body was doing things that I didn't want them to do, and I was not behaving as I normally was, this person said they couldn't be around me anymore. It was like I was contagious or whatever. So instead of being a supportive person in my life, and that's years ago, and it's still bringing up emotion for me. So instead of being a supportive person
Mm.
beside me, they rejected me, and that was so hurtful, so
Mhm.
hurtful. Mm.
I wonder if
Absolutely.
people realize the harm that is done when they make a judgment like that, and what what causes a person to be so limited in their viewpoint that they
Mhm.
would think a disability would inhibit a friendship. I don't understand that.
I think
I
it's what
think
they value.
Yeah. And I think, Barbara, it has to do with, and Wendy and I were having a discussion this morning. She was reading, I think, from Richard Rohr, and he was talking about fundamentalists and using the Bible, and and I think in the spiritual world too, people use affirmations and whatever in a negative way too, in that it's to their purpose. Like, if you do this, then you're going to get that result. If you read the Bible, you're going to get this result. If you're going to,
Mhm.
and so I don't know, I've gone off on a tangent now. You said something that triggered, uh, I think with this person, what because of my attitude in general, being a positive person, upbeat type of person, and I became ill. So therefore, that wasn't working. So then maybe what they were believing wouldn't work for them too. I don't. I
Yeah.
don't know.
Yeah. It can be so many different reasons, right? And yeah, assumptions. I know that any assumption I've ever made has definitely made an ass out of me.
Hmm.
So,
You know, I'm thinking about what you just said, Mark. And when I had my store, I had this person came in, and I had a cane in my hand, and the person said to me, "Oh, if you had enough faith in God, you would be healed."
Hmm.
And so I looked at the person, and what I wanted to say is, "Get out of my store." And I
Yeah.
thought, you're a customer. So, but what I said was, "Ooh, I think that's really dangerous thinking." And I said,
mm,
"Don't you think God knows I've got this issue? Maybe it's
mm,
intentional so I learn lessons. Maybe
mhm,
if what you're saying will actually not take me on the path that I need to go on if I suddenly, if you think that this is going to heal me when maybe healing isn't what I need right now." And he was like, I don't think anyone had said that to him. But I was just like,
yeah,
oh, dangerous thinking here. Dangerous thinking
yeah.
here.
Very,
Good
very.
response. Maybe it's also for him to do some healing himself, right?
Maybe.
Because often I think that happens as well, is that people who come into our lives that mirror something in us that pushes a button or whatever, is highlighting what it is that we need to look at in ourselves.
Fair
And
Oh
enough.
my goodness. Put button pushers, Cheryl.
Yeah, but yeah, I hear you, Mark. I just want to acknowledge as well, that you've experienced that, when people want to tell you who you are, just how disrespectful that
It
is.
is.
Yeah.
Mhm, mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't like people telling me I'm normal.
Oh
I think
God,
that's an
no.
insult.
It's funny you should say that because for me, when we were talking about why normal sucks and why you haven't asked me exactly directly, but I want to say that when people started saying, why that title, Laura? What's that about?
Mhm,
Well, I don't like it when someone says you are. So I have a couple of things that I wrote down that I've had people say to me, which it's like, yeah, okay. Oh, but you look so normal.
mhm,
Oh yeah, whatever
mhm,
that means. Or it's normal to feel this way.
mhm,
It is. Okay. If you'd only do X, fill in the blank, you'd be normal. I've
mhm.
had people say that about MS. One of my favorites is I was told that I wouldn't live to 40 by one of the doctors. And so it's like, and when I did, that's not normal. Okay, wait. Instead of saying, hurrah, you're still here, that's not normal.
Yeah, exactly.
And I just, I also get quite often when they do an MRI, they'll say to me, oh, you shouldn't be able to walk. You shouldn't be able to do what you're doing. That's not normal. I'm like, okay. So I don't know. I find it fascinating. And I also wanted to share something else that I've been sort of collecting because I think it's sort of amusing. This is amusing me really. Is over the years when we were talking earlier about disability and in public or whatever, I've started collecting things that have happened or things I've said about accessibility. So one of my favorite ones, I want to read this to you. Written instructions for a medication I got. You ready for this? If you are blind, please do not use this medication without help. If I was blind, I couldn't read this medication. So instructions. I was like, are you kidding me? It said that. And I was whatever. Okay. And I have been blind, which is why I was very aware about that. Another one is if I call up a building to see, because I had to do this when I had a wheelchair. I learned that I had to call up to someone and say, are you accessible? Please tell me if you are. And they're, oh, yeah. Just one step to get in and then it's accessible. Okay, so it's not accessible, which is always so funny to me. And then, I don't know. I've got so many of them. When people talk louder, when I thought I was deaf. I just think it's really interesting. Oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah. This was my favorite. Not my favorite. I was in a hospital and I had to have physio, and they made me do the in-house physio, not the one I normally saw because it's just different systems. I don't know, whatever. So the physio, and I'm not able to speak very well. I'm in a wheelchair and my left hand is all curled up, right? So can't work it. And thank God I'm right-handed, but this was all left-handed like this. And so physio says to me, what sports do you like to do? I write on a piece of paper, well, I used to bike ride. Good, we'll work towards that. And I said, yeah, but so I wrote and I said, I lose my balance. My neurologist told me to sell my bike because he doesn't want me to fall off in front of a bus and kill myself. Give this to the person says to me, you're giving up too soon. You're giving up too easily. What else do you want to do? What other sports do you like to do? I'm like, oh, I used to play tennis, given this, right? And the person goes, well, good. We'll work towards that. And I was like, in the hot sun, I can't be outside. I don't have any eye-hand coordination anymore. I can't run. I'm in a wheelchair. And I was just like, I'm ready. I was thinking, are you kidding me? Like, let's work to the audience that is intended here. I am not going out to do sports. I would like to, but anyway. I've just had lots of those weird experiences with people making assumptions about what I should want and what I should be wanting to do. And I thought I would share those because they amuse me now. At the time, they were horrifying, but they amuse me now. I'd share that. So,
It's
Yeah.
funny how some people can be so out of touch to actually ask those questions.
yeah.
What did he think you were there for? Like, what did he think your disability was that he's asking those?
Well,
course.
to be honest, I thought that too. Do you really work with people with MS? That's what I wanted to say. Like, do you really know what's
No.
going on here? It was really shocking in the weirdest way. And
Mhm.
at the time, I was quite upset by it, but it didn't take me very long to find the humor in it because it just, oh, come on, you're telling someone in a wheelchair they're going to play tennis? Really?
Mhm. Mhm.
I mean,
Yeah.
maybe.
And it's
Yeah,
not like you
it's
broke
a
your leg
possibility.
and it's going to heal. You've got
Yeah.
MS,
Yeah.
which
Yeah.
is,
Oh,
as far as I know, not curable at the moment. So
not curable, certainly, but thank goodness for
manageable.
medication that is, well, when I first had MS, they literally said to me, literally, go home, eat all the chocolate you want. Don't bother exercising. You're going to die young anyway. I literally got told that. And so I was like, what? So, and I was in my 20s at the time. And I was shocked by that. At the same time, it somehow motivated me to
Mhm.
I don't know that it would have motivated everybody though.
Mm.
People would have died by 40, some people, based on that kind of instruction. But it did motivate me to say, yeah, I'm pushing beyond that. But I certainly had no illusions of playing tennis again or even riding a
Mhm.
bike. I actually now have a bike in my living room that I ride every day, a stationary bike. But almost like even weirdly with MS, because of my spatial orientation, as soon as I get off the bike, I'm like, where am I in the world? I literally fall into a chair that I have, and I have to sit there for about 15 minutes before I
Mm.
can get up and move around.
Mhm.
Especially if I try to go further and further, it gets worse and worse. And it's a thing. I asked my neurologist, like, hello, is this normal? And it turns out it's normal to have this reaction because I can't be on a bike, even a stationary one. So can you imagine on a bike on the road? I'd be
Yeah.
falling
Yeah.
in front of the bus in a heartbeat. So anyway,
Well,
No.
and you've proven so many doctors wrong, right?
gosh.
So for me, that affirms again your way of thinking, and your attitude is really what has got you here today. And Dr. Joe Dispenza, I don't know if you know any of his work, but he talks about rewiring the brain, that the brain is really it has plasticity or
Plasticity,
something.
plasticity.
Yeah. And you can rewire the brain. And you're saying, like, right now you're not in a wheelchair, you're not using a scooter. For me, you're rewiring your brain again, maybe without you even realizing it.
No, I do realize it actually. It's funny you should say that because early on, as the doctor started saying to me, wow, we can't explain you, I would
Mm,
say, do you want to know what I'm doing?
mm,
I've decided to be healthy.
mhm.
Mm.
I've
Yeah.
just, and whatever that meant, I mean, honestly, I came to the conclusion if I could afford it financially or emotionally, try anything. Because at
Yeah.
first there was nothing for me. Now, the only thing I couldn't do was bee stings apparently help with pain and MS. And you had to have 10 bee stings a day. And I was like, yeah, I can't afford that emotionally. No, thank you. And it's like, well, okay. Anyway, so for me that was a no. But for some people with MS, I guess they do it. But I did. If I could afford it emotionally, financially, I tried anything. And
Mhm,
now, sometimes financially I couldn't try things, but if
mhm,
I could afford it, I would. And I just decided to be. And
mhm,
interestingly enough, you should say this. MRIs over the years have shown that my mental cortex has gotten larger. So I can make myself, by thinking it through, make
mhm,
myself do things that I shouldn't be able to because my automatic response to things gone. You know how
mhm,
when you dance and you lose yourself in the music? I used to do that. Now I'm falling all over the place and I have no sense of that at all. But
mhm,
but if I think about it, I
mhm,
can sometimes dance and it takes a lot of effort and so it's exhausting. But I
mhm,
can make myself do things that I
mhm.
Mm.
with thought. And so I do
Wonderful.
know that I have done that.
Yeah, wonderful.
Question.
Yes, dear.
So by the way, Laura and I have danced in a grocery store,
We
just
have.
swaying to and fro,
We have. We have.
depending on the music, actually. So yesterday, as an example, you had a class that was inspiring to you and whatever. You're a person that obviously is highly intelligent. You have a number of different degrees. So you're the teacher. are the students teachers to you as
Oh,
well?
Mark, you know me so well. So yeah, I mean, one of the most wonderful things last night is we were talking about, well, in every class actually, I tell the students I learn from them far more than I teach them. And it is always a give and take. It is always about learning from each other. Last night in my class, I told my students about my story. I told my students about having MS because I wanted them to know I know of what I speak. I am
Mhm.
talking about why normal sucks, and I'm going to tell you why normal sucks from my own experience. And they told me their stories, and I mean, I have 45 students. There was 43 in the class, and they were open with each other. They were making me cry. They were sharing their stories, and they teach me so much. And actually, after the class was over, one of my students asked to stay behind, and they did, and said to me that they tried to commit suicide 2 weeks ago,
Mm.
and that my story from last night is the first thing that's given them hope. And
Wow.
I was like, who pays me for this? Honestly, I feel I am in the right place at the right time. I'm exactly the right person to do this. And
Mhm.
at the same time, my students are blowing me away with their openness. And they always do. My students are amazing.
Mm.
But at the same time, this class is really something to me. And
Mm.
I'm not just because it's personal to me, but because they're responding so beautifully. And I got an email last night from a student after the class was over telling me they had cerebral palsy and that they try to pretend it's only left side, and they try to pretend that they don't have it, and they wear clothes to hide it. And they said to me that this is the first time in their life that they've realized it's okay to be who they are, and that
Wow.
they are going to, try to start showing it. And they said the most amazing. I saved this email, but they just said that they feel. The person said, "If she's half the woman I am, she'll be proud of herself as she gets older."
Wow.
And I was just like, wow, like
Mhm. Mhm.
so. I mean, I'm just so impressed with them, and I have for a long time thought, wow, it gives me hope for the future when I see these beautiful hearts
Mhm.
in my students.
Mhm.
They're a
Wow.
reflection of you, Laura. Like
Well, do you
you've
know what?
created a safe place for them to explore this. That's powerful.
It is incredibly powerful, but it is also uh, not me. I mean, what I honestly feel last night was so clearly it wasn't me. I mean, I was there, of course, I was there, but I felt like it was so much more than me. It was bigger than
Mhm.
me. It was a
Mhm.
collective. It was,
Yep.
um, you're right, I'm creating this space. And at the same time, actually, one time I had a faculty member say to me, "Don't you find our students belligerent?" And I said, "Never once, never
Mhm.
once, never
Mhm.
once." And I wanted to say to them, "Are you belligerent to them? Because I believe what you give them, they give back." So I understand what you're
Exactly.
saying, absolutely, that I'm creating the space, but they're creating it too. They're
Mhm.
willing, they're open, they're present. I mean, I have an amazing class of students who are open. And so, yeah, it is a mutual thing for sure. So, in answer to
Mhm.
your question, Mark, it is absolutely a two-way street and always is, or 10 or 46. I don't know,
Mhm.
how many of us there are. Collective. Let's go with the collective.
Mhm. That's beautiful though, because it's
Mhm.
that container that allows them to be able to, yeah, that's marvelous. You're giving them something that most people don't get in the world.
You're
Uh,
changing lives,
you're changing lives, yeah.
which is really amazing.
Well,
You're giving them space where they can change their own mind. They
Mhm.
I
can
was
change
just
their
going to
own
say
mind.
that. I am perhaps planting seeds. I'm perhaps providing, a vessel or a space I mean, yes, I'm calling it not even space, but brave space because it is brave of us to do this. I mean, the other cool thing last night, like, I don't know, I teach online, which I actually really like because I see everybody's faces. I mean, when you're across the
Mm.
room, there's lots of them and you can't really see them. I love that I see their faces and I'm totally good with that. But a lot of times the students aren't on camera. Last time I said to them, last night I said, in this class, we're going to have 5 other people guest speaking apart from me. So there's going to be 6 of us. I need us to be on camera because It's really hard to talk to a sea of faces when you're, or a sea of names, not faces, when you're talking about something so personal. So can we practice? Can you just put your cameras on? The entire class put their camera on. The entire,
Nice.
I've never seen that before when I make that ask. Many
Mhm.
do, but I'm,
Mm.
again, this, like, it's just blowing my mind. These,
Mhm.
and touching my heart so deeply. And I feel so honored to be doing this. And I feel so lucky, and I feel so privileged, and I do not take this for granted. So, but yes, I'm changing lives, and they're changing mine. Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Beautiful.
Well, as we're coming to the end already, hard to believe it's gone so fast. What is one thing you'd like our viewers to take away from this conversation today?
There are so many things, and I think there's two things I want to say. Oh my goodness, people keep
Sure.
going so good. I turned it off. First of all, last year was a year that was bad for everybody under the sun. But I decided in April that I was having a year of yes.
Nice.
And I had a year of yes. I went, and my yes is continuing into this year. I'm still having my year of yes. And I have just decided that I am going to live that way. That instead of going, because it's so easy to do that in the world we're in, I'm saying yes. And so what I want to say, and I've started to say it in a lot of different in a lot of meetings and things at the college, is that I think joy is a choice. And I want to say that as hard as it is sometimes to make that choice, I want to say that joy is a choice. And so you can choose joy. You can choose to live your life in any way you want. And you can respond to life by choosing joy. So that's what I want to say.
Wow. I agree.
Sounds like a minister.
I'm not.
Her next degree.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I just would be, I honor anyone who has that job, because I don't know how you do it, but so thank you.
That's not so different from what you're doing.
I think it is.
Well, thank you for that. I really love that answer. It really makes perfect sense. What about you, Mark? What one thing is a good takeaway from today, do you think?
My heart is full. I got to share my dear friend with you today, and whoever is listening. Thank you so much, Laura, for joining us and participating in a different way in our friendship today.
You're a sweetheart. Thank you, my
Nice.
dear. Love you so much, and I love that we're doing this together.
Nice. And Cheryl, what about you?
Ditto. Yeah, no, it's been an honor and a privilege to have you, Laura. So glad we got to meet you. Mark has been really sharing what a special person you are to her and to others with all that you represent. So thank you for coming. I think what I want people to leave with is that you're going to be with us again on February 14th. Thank you. And that normal sucks. It really does suck.
It really does suck. You're right. That's what I should have said. That's my takeaway. Normal sucks. Not sex.
Normal
Not
sucks.
normal sex. I don't speak to normal sex. Normal sucks. But I also think choose joy. I think that's a
Choose
nice
joy. Oh,
Absolutely.
I love that.
And you, Barbara.
Well, I'm just going to stick with the joy thing because, of course, I've got my joy show, which I'll have to talk to you about coming on to that because that show is joy is an acronym for just one you. Goes back to that living authentically, and there's no such thing as normal. So
It does indeed. I actually saw your acronym for joy, and I'm like, that I love that. My dog's name is Joy as well, by the way. So.
Oh, I love it. I love it. We'll talk. Thank you, everyone, for being here. Thank you, Laura, for being remarkable. You are truly a gift. And Marg and Cheryl, love you both, my sisters. And I look forward to seeing you all next week. And hey, you're watching the New Thought Media Network here on This is Spirit Cafe. Please like, share, and subscribe. Bye for now. See you next time.
Bye.